What's up, everybody? Welcome out to our 6 o'clock live stream.
What's up?
We got the continuation of last week, part two of
Saga.
the Ed Hardy saga. Um, we got a couple cool things to talk about today. We're going to talk about him returning back after Japan, and then also get into the publishing part of it. I'm going to make sure that I focus on looking at the camera more this week. I realized after watching last week, I do not do that enough. So pretty solid week for myself, productive wise. Got some cool stuff lined up. Working on a cool new episode that hopefully I can get done this week and put out, and we'll go from there. Had a pretty well-known tattoo artist actually call out the Cliff Raven episode on one of his posts. Said that I did a great job. Check it out. He was suggesting it to somebody else, which was cool. And so far so good, man. Like, I was having a down week, dude. I was ready to just pack it up and be like, you know what? I think I'm done. No lie. Justin's looking at me like, you're nuts, dude. I was having a moment of, looking at other shows that do tattooing, and a lot of them are actually tattoo artists. I can't really compare myself to that, right? Because I'm not a tattoo artist, and I'm like, dude, the production's horrible. The person talks horrible. And I'm like, and they got like freaking 500,000 views. It's like, one of them is because it's, cute girl, I think. But in reality, I'm just like, dude, it's like a low effort. I'm not trying to bash anybody, but I work my ass off to put out stuff, and it just feels like a kick in the giggleberries sometimes.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault that our generation, our generation is not as acquainted with the tech. The kids are gonna have a hand up, man. You know what I mean? How old am I? I'm 53. I mean, a 30-year-old now, intimately. Did 30-year-olds ever live without Facebook?
I don't know.
Like, let's say by the time they were 15.
I have no idea. We got Fat Crackers in the house. We got Tom in the house.
Look that up.
We got Luz in the house. Chris in the house. Sarah, of course. Sarah's here. Diehard Sarah. Luz. We got moderator Nikki in the house. Trying to see if there's anybody else around that we want to give a shout out to.
So MySpace, the precursor to Facebook, was created in 2003, which means that if somebody is a 20-something today, they've spent, everything post 10 years old involved in social media in one form or another. They're going to be more acclimated to it, and they're going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We got
I don't know.
Somebody new in the house, Jason Langley. He's 53. Said he's been tattooing since '94. He corrected himself.
Nice.
In '95. Welcome to the show, Jason. Thanks for stopping out, man. This is our usual Sunday night live stream that we do every Sunday.
This is our usual Sunday night live stream that we do on Thursdays. On Sundays.
It was super redundant.
Right.
But I'm spitballing here, dude. This is what happens when I get off the track. But yeah, man, we just typically shoot the shit about tattooing culture, tattoo history. We just happen to be doing a part 2 this week, or we're continuing on the Ed Hardy. We started it last week, and I got a little long-winded and it ran over. So we figured we got to the part where we came back from Japan.
Do you have your notes?
And I have my notes.
Nice.
And I figured we would start from that point forward. I just want to make sure I said hello to everybody that's in the house. Um.
Are you really doing that in the house?
In the shop.
In the house?
In the shop. Everybody that's in the shop.
Everybody in the house?
I'm just spitballing,
Jesus,
dude.
man.
Yeah, man.
I'm going to look at my flip phone for MC Hammer videos.
Dude, you know what? Hold on, man. I have an interesting tidbit about him. You know, everybody wants to make fun of him because of the whole genie pants thing and the can't touch this.
Yeah.
Dude, you know he was such a badass gangster
Uh-huh.
that Suge Knight wouldn't even fuck with him.
Wow.
Like he was one of the only rappers that Suge Knight was like, "Oh, dude, I don't mess with MC Hammer." Legit. And I'm like, when I heard that, I was like, "What?" Because you think of him with the gold chains, the eraser haircut, and the genie pants.
And Whitney Houston, right?
No, that's Bobby Brown, dude.
Oh, Bobby Brown. Sorry. Sorry.
Trish in the house. Trish says, "Hey, Justin."
Hey. Yo.
Jason said, "What's up? Thank you. I'm here in Northern California. I tattoo in Auburn, California. Syndicate Tattoo. I've been watching the tattoo history videos. They are amazing. Got to keep the history alive." Dude, thank you, man. Much appreciated. Finally getting some love, man. Finally.
I've always liked him.
Oh, you're my friend, dude. You kind of have to. You don't have a choice, dude.
Okay. Like when I say, "What do you think of this tattoo, Buck?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's super nice."
No, I tell you flat out if it's no bueno. I'll be like, "Yo, dude, you got a wonky line right
That's
there."
never happened, folks.
It's never happened. I'm just saying.
Happened.
You know, there's been some sparring going on between some of these tattoo creators. What do you call them? I don't want to say creators, but influencers. There you go. That was the word. I'm brain fart.
Little sparring.
Yeah, man, where they're like kind of going back and forth at each other because the one dude kind of picks apart other people's tattoos and stuff like that. And the first thing I thought of was it's exactly why when I started doing this, I said right off the bat, when you and I were talking, we were kicking around the whole idea of me starting this channel. And I had said, I never want to talk about anybody else's tattoo work. And that this, whatever's going on with them, and I'm not even going to mention their names. You could look it up on YouTube, man. You'll find it. Is exactly why I didn't want to do that, man. Because now they're just bashing each other's work.
Wow.
Yeah, to the point where the one guy the other day was like, this guy, he wants to call out all these other tattoo artists and blah, blah, blah. He's like, let's look at his stuff. And he starts pulling up his pictures of his stuff that he had on Instagram. He was like, look at these wonky lines and da-da-da. I'm like, oh, man. See, man, first of all, I'm not a tattoo artist. I always say I'm not a tattoo artist. I'm just a guy that likes tattoos, been tattooed, been around a while. So I have no business talking about somebody else's tattoo work. I know what I like.
I always thought that was a little low rent.
What, bashing somebody else's tattoo work?
Yeah, so you get like a client who's not that familiar with tattoos,
right?
And I mean, I've seen this in shops. They come in, and the guy that's doing the work on them now, the guy that's doing the present tattoo on him will be like, "Oh, what's up with that old tattoo that you got there?" And then he'll critique it to make it seem like it's shitty work. And I just always thought it's really low rent to go in on somebody else's work. Now, if somebody says, "What do you think of this?" And even then, I wear kid gloves, man.
Like right, if they're going to open a door to your critique.
I say things like, you have to understand, I don't look at that like how you look at that. I look at that from this certain perspective.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, I don't know. I've seen people with immaculate work that they didn't appreciate. And I've seen people with shitty work that they just fucking loved.
Yeah, so the one guy actually, he's been critiquing for a while, and I don't really think he goes too like over the edge on calling stuff out. He actually made a comment on one of my videos and said it was great work and blah blah blah, which was cool. Uh, but he made a really good point the other day where he said that a lot of these new tattoo artists are doing tattoos that are for the Instagram picture, not for longevity.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a lot of validity behind that because people don't realize how much stuff is going to fall out or spread over time. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that is probably one of the biggest things that tattooers in general, if they could like beat that into the average person's head, because I remember even being like, first starting to get tattooed, and I'd be like, why can't you pack all them little lines into there? I've seen it in pictures. And now I know better because I've been, getting tattooed for 30 years.
I mean, Capobianco made a point the other day. I was watching a short of him, and he was like, with the picture shop and with the picture shop stuff, the photo manipulation, the expectation of what tattooing can be now is just off the fucking charts.
Yeah.
Like, and customers, I mean, it didn't even occur to me that people would alter their photos until like a couple years ago when I saw that guy, the Tattoo Truth Fairy, put up like examples of how people would Photoshop their stuff.
Dude, what's crazy is I actually saw an ad today on Instagram. It was about that exactly, where this guy is selling this product. He was like, this is in 2016. Use my product to increase your the look of your pictures. And it's like this filter that you can put on the back of your phone with these little like magnetic lights, filler. I guess they're like filler lights where you could kind of brighten it up and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, man, like a real tattoo artist, I don't think really cares. I was going to say they don't care what the picture looks like, but the work should speak for itself, man. You shouldn't have to doctor it in order to sell it.
Right.
Fat Cracker said, unfortunately, that's the reason they're getting a lot of views. He's talking about the back and forth and the bashing of other tattoo artists' work.
And I wonder, like, because I've brought this up to you personally. I don't know if I've ever talked about this on the show. How much of the conflict is generated for that reason?
Just to get views.
Right?
I think a lot of it.
Yeah. Like the old school versus the new school. The Bishop pen versus the coil machine.
Yeah.
Photorealism versus traditional tattooing. I mean, how much of that is just to generate buzz and interest? Because personally, I could appreciate other tattooers' work, but I don't necessarily I don't care what people are doing.
Yeah. I hear you.
I mean, I'm not going to die on it. I'm not going to die on any hills.
Yeah, but you're also not out there, pushing Instagram and all that to get views to, you know what I mean? Like you're not trying to do this whole like influencer thing. You're just a shop owner trying to do your thing, man. Make money, give out, good tattoos and have a, repeat clientele.
Yeah.
To you, that matters more than somebody that's, I got 100,000 followers on Instagram and da 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 da. I mean, which is cool. If you got that, that's cool. Nobody's bashing that.
But see, and that's what I was saying. Like the kids are just more naturally acclimated to that kind of thinking because they've grown up with social media as a constant part of their experience.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a whole group of kids, and we're going to get back to the Ed Hardy thing in a second.
Oh yeah, there was a tattooer named Ed Hardy.
But there's a whole group of kids that are going to grow up thinking that they can talk to people in public like they do on the internet. And we grew up in a time where there was no computers, so the stuff that's coming out of these kids' mouths, you would have to say in person, and you'd get cracked in the mouth.
Yeah, I mean that's Tyson's favorite quote. That's Mike Tyson's famous quote, right? That the internet has allowed people to say things that they would never have the balls to say.
Yeah, exactly. So
Like when they disrespected Jay and Silent Bob, and Jay and Silent Bob went from house to house and beat them up.
There's Jason said there's no accounting for taste. Drag said, "Hey, what's up, Drag
What's up?
Man?"
Hola.
Jason said, "Yeah, take a picture and post it. That's it, man. There's no need for all the fancy schmancy shit, man." And Cracker said, "That's what sells." Jesse said, "Do you?" Here, I'll put it up on screen too. Do you think photo manipulation is also pushing the limits of tattooing, making tattooers better in order to keep up with the expectation?
I mean, I think if you can't produce it on the skin, you should not post it. I mean, there are natural geniuses of tattooing. There are prodigy tattooers.
Mm-hmm.
There's guys that can do with a tattoo machine what other people can't.
And we've seen it in person.
Right, we've seen it in person.
Yep.
But there's also people that can't tattoo what they're representing in their social media, and that's fucked up.
Well, what I love is the healed versus fresh page.
Right.
Because you see some of those tattoos and it's like, a year later, we're not even talking like a length of time, a year. And you're like, whoa, man, look at that. How much that fell out. Fat Cracker said, conflict sells, unfortunately, which it's true, man. I mean,
there's a reason.
So me and you need to start fighting on like air.
Right.
And then we'll get more people to share the page and push the like button to share it to other people and be like, look at these two fat guys fighting, and we'll have like 1,000 fucking viewers in here.
I mean, that was the point.
Yeah, two fat guys fist fight.
That's the point of traditional work, right? Strong, bold lines, black shading, solid color with room to breathe, so it's not so saturated that it becomes confusing. That's the point. That like a parrot that Tony Polito did in 1970 still has the green in it,
and it still looks like a parrot,
and the yellow and some of the red.
Yeah.
Right. That's just what it is, man. Because they were I don't want to be too soapboxy.
I hear you, man. It's good. It's good. We get, hey, look, these spirited conversations bring in views.
There
you go. That's what we need. What's up, Shiro? Did not mean to belch in the microphone. That's horrible.
Did you belch in the microphone?
Yeah, that was bad, dude.
All right, so
Fat Cracker just said fat fist fight.
Fat fist fight.
There you go. Jason said a third black, a third color, a third skin.
That's right.
There you go, man. Bold will hold.
A third black. I don't like to leave a third skin. I like a little more color than that. But that's just personal preference.
Right, but a lot of this comes down to personal preference.
Well, what's his Sarah Eddie Jr. put this whole thing. He put this whole thing
about the leaf.
Yeah, on
where he's
Instagram.
Like, this isn't traditional.
Yeah,
man. I will actually try to. God damn it! Let me see if I can bring that up. By the way,
and I mean, and if it's kind of hard to. It's kind of
hard to argue with him. Yeah. I mean, Okay, so we left off. Where we left off last on this.
Where we left off last was Don Hardy was getting off the plane from Japan, broken
after 6 months of servitude under a Japanese master,
with no money,
broken, with his tail between his legs.
Absolutely.
Back to San Francisco.
Absolutely. Do you think that's a positive thing?
Japan was so bad.
Do you think that's a positive thing?
What?
Adversity
Absolutely, dude.
builds character.
Absolutely. Made me who I am. Try going through life fat. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
But you weren't always fat, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've gone through life fat and stupid.
Wow.
So, what was it in Animal House?
Going through life fat and stupid is no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going through life fat, stupid, and drunk is no way to go about it. So I got fat and stupid. I haven't been drunk for some time.
Okay, so comes back to the United States, opens up a shop on Van Ness Ave in San Fran with Bob Roberts, right?
With Bob Roberts.
Fine Line Tattoo. I think that's what it was called, right?
Sounds about right. The one that.
I'm sorry, Realistic Tattoo.
Wow. Yeah.
I wasn't even close. You know.
Is that the one that burnt down?
It's not like I don't have notes or anything to, read.
That's the one that burnt down, right?
Glitter on your cheek, dude. It's freaking me out a little bit.
All right. So the reason I have glitter on my cheek is because
he's been stripping in the evenings to make extra cash.
Yeah. Given the tattoo market,
he's got to make up some extra money, man.
Asian women have a lot of strange fetishes.
So he opens up the Realistic Tattoo with Bob Roberts, and he decides he wants it to be a nondescript studio, word of mouth kind of place. And fortunately, it didn't. Other side, it didn't stay word of mouth too long because obviously it got out pretty quick that these guys were pulling some crazy work. You got it, dude.
So there's a famous quote that he said about opening a private studio for custom work. I got tired of arguing with junkies about whether or not a unicorn should be $15.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, it's got a point.
Did that shop burnt down though, right?
I'm not sure why they changed and created Tattoo City. I know that Bob Roberts left and went to New York for a short spell and opened up his first iteration of Spotlight Tattoo. But then Ed would go to Mission Street in San Francisco, and he was the first tattoo shop to open up in the Mission District, which featured fine line, black, and gray work. That actually, I talked about that a little bit in my Bob Roberts thing. So Bob and Ed drove up to L.A. To meet up with Jack Rudy and Good Time Charlie because they saw some of the fine line gray work black and gray work that they were doing at the first convention. And they were just like blown away by it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why they started the shop. They wanted to focus on that themselves with this, new fine line stuff that they were doing. I do know that part. Yeah, so they wound up being the first tattoo shop in the Mission District. And that shop was destroyed by fire in 1978.
Yep.
The second Tattoo City was opened up on Columbus Ave. And then the third incarnation of Tattoo City was opened up in 1991 on Lombard Street. But he would also continue to work at Realistic Tattooing. So he had Tattoo City, but he also had the private studio open. So he was doing both. And I guess it was more of, okay, well, here's where I'm going to do my, private stuff, my larger pieces. And then over here is where I'm going to do my, walk-in work and have other artists work there and stuff like that, which, yeah, shout out to world famous Spotlight Tattoo here in LA, Bob Roberts. So I forgot. You know what, Fat Cracker? Why Justin speaks real quick. I'm going to see if I can pull that picture up that you sent me
of Corbin and all them guys.
Yeah, you want to? I'll show that.
Tattoo City, nice.
I'm gonna bring that up, and you could talk about that while I try to find this other picture.
So back in the
There you go.
early '90s, Hanky Panky from Holland put out 2 magazines, and where he put out a magazine that had 2 issues, and this was from a series of portraits that were done of different groups of tattooers, and these were some of the guys who Ed mentored and whose careers were launched. I think in that picture is Corbin, Eddie Duche, Joe Vegas, and Scott Harrison. Now I don't know.
Higgs.
No, it's Harrison.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He tattooed me.
Okay.
Yeah, he tattooed me. Um, I don't know if all these guys worked for Ed or not, or whether he was just a mentor figure for them. But I know for certain that when the word got around that Tattoo City was closing, Eddie Duche put something on Instagram that was moving, like a tribute to Hardy.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, and Vegas, Duche, and Corbin are I mean, they're not. I don't think they're Godfather tattooers, but they're definitely very, very respected veterans tattooers. Scott, I think. Scott, I think enjoys painting more than tattooing. I don't know. I've got a couple of his books. He's an interesting guy. But I mean, Corbin's a Temple Tattoo, and I'm not sure where Vegas or Duche work now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Scott actually told me not to tattoo.
wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to him about tattooing when I was getting tattooed by him, and he said, Justin, if you paint well enough to tattoo, you should just be an artist and paint. And if you don't paint well enough to tattoo, you shouldn't tattoo.
Wow.
Took me a minute to unpack that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, because at that point, were you were already like working as an artist, right?
No, I wasn't working. So I worked in a shop, and the people that I worked for made some demands upon me, and until I was able to take care of that obligation, I was told it would be better if I didn't work at another shop. So between my first shop and my second shop, there's a little period of time where I was just working on my own.
Okay.
And anybody that's my age as a tattooer understands what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Scott was like, at the time, I think that he was teaching at New York at NYU. He was an art. He was teaching an art class. He was an art professor, and then tattooing on the side. So
Okay.
he's an interesting guy.
I was actually trying to find a picture that I wanted to bring up, but I'll dig into that in a minute. Yeah, a lot of talent in that photo, Fat Cracker said.
A lot of talent. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's been a lot of really good heartfelt posts about this whole scenario with Ed, not only being sick, but the closing of the shop. And there's a part of me that wonders if they're going to somebody's going to try to take it over or buy it, or you know what I mean. Like, I don't know if it's going to close. It'll be out of the Hardy family. But I would think, I mean, who knows, man? Maybe, I don't know about the area enough to say, hey, it's feasible to keep open.
See, it was always weird to me that when Malone took over Sailor Jerry's shop, it became China Sea. Like he didn't carry over Jerry's name. Just like who owns Burt Grimm's shop now?
Carrie
Barba. It's not associated with Burt Grimm's name anymore, though, right? Did she rename it?
It's Outer Limits.
Outer Limit Tattoo, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll be a scenario like that where someone will take over the physical space, kind of honor what the tattooing that went on there,
Right.
while at the same time, sort of breaking away from Tattoo City.
I was trying to find a picture. I'll search for it in a minute here. I downloaded it. I don't know why I can't find it. Well, my computer's not pulling it up.
Tech.
So in '82, Ed Hardy and his wife,
Pasquella.
that's her last name. I forget her first name. And Ernie Carafa would
Mr.
start the
Carafa.
first tattoo magazine called Tattoo Time.
Which wasn't necessarily a magazine.
It was like a small series of books, correct? I mean,
Yeah.
you have a couple. Show them.
It was I don't know if it was the first, because I don't know whether Easy Rider put Tattoo magazine out first. These are the Tattoo Times.
Ooh.
So they're a little bit beefier than a magazine, and a little bit less than a book. Jesus, Justin.
I mean, you got like a whole freaking library of books over there, bro.
Yeah, it's one of the points I'm going to make later.
Okay.
So Ernie, right?
Yes.
So I go to Ernie and I'm like, Ernie, can you critique my work? And he's like, you don't want me to critique your work. I'm like, no, Ernie, I really want you to critique my work. So he looks through my stuff and he finds a seagull. He's like, what the fuck is this in the wing? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what the fuck is this brown shit in the wing? And I was like, well, it's the eagle's wing. I flick shaded out some black and I put a little bit of brown in it to, you know. He's like, eagles don't have fucking brown in their wings. Right? And then a couple years later, I'm telling Swaggart the story, and Swaggart shows me an eagle that Ernie did
With brown in the wings?
with brown in the wing. And I was just like, man.
All right, so I was finally able to pull this up.
Ernie Carafa, one of the great obscure gentlemen of tattooing.
I wanted to bring this up because I promised him I would. That is our loyal listener, Fat Cracker.
Wow.
Gets the tiger on his cheek. And Fat Cracker, let me know, is that... Yeah, you got that done at Spotlight. Yeah, because it says right up there, Bob Roberts Spotlight Tattoo. So I promised that I would bring it up, and I wanted to show it to everybody because when I saw it, I was like, what?
That's beautiful.
Yeah, hell of a job, man. Anyway.
How was the swelling on the face?
Yeah.
I mean...
He said yes, Spotlight.
So Hardy and Hardy sees, or wait, never mind. We're talking about Ernie now.
Yeah, well, so he said crazy swelling. So the reason why I bring up Ernie is because it's always Tattoo Time at Hardy, but from what I understand, and this came from Ernie Carafa's son, and it was also backed up by RC from Philly, who used to work with Ernie Carafa. So Ernie was able to get publishing because nobody would do any publishing for Tattoo Time because it was just like, it's tattoos. Nobody wanted to touch it. But because Ernie had some connection to the military, I don't know if I can't remember, man. And Paulie, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, I'm messing this up. So Ernie was either in the Navy or the Air Force. I can't remember, but he had some kind of connection to a military type of magazine. And that's how he was able to score the publishing for Tattoo Time. And Ed also had worked at Ernie's shop a couple times. Like, that's another thing that people don't realize about Ed is Ed actually did go
all
around
over
the country to
all
tattoo.
over.
So yeah, he had Tattoo City or whatever, but he would also go all over the place and travel. And I don't. So in your mind, do you feel like that was just to see what everybody else was doing, to like, or was it more to increase his exposure?
I think it was well, first off, I don't think that I don't think that we can I don't know if we can really conceptualize what it was like then. So for Don Hardy to walk into, like, say, Ernie's shop, he would have to be like, I'm Don, I'm friends with so and so, because otherwise Ernie would have told him to get the fuck out. Like, I don't think Don was hopping from shop to steal information from other tattooers. I think when you reached a certain place and you were all right with them, if you were all right with one, you were all right with them, and they would share information with you.
Right.
But
Okay.
if you just walked into a shop being like, "Yeah, I'm so and so," and I don't know anybody,
Right.
yeah, you were getting thrown the fuck out, or you were getting thrown out.
So
2 F-bombs in one video. Wow,
just dropping them left and right,
bang.
cursing like a sailor. So just because I don't know if you were able to see it, but he said it took a week to die down, the swelling. Yeah. And as you can see, Mr. Cracker, everybody thought that was a pretty badass tattoo. So congrats to you, my man. When I saw it, I was like, what? And then I'm like, I got to put that on the show. And then I forgot last week. So anyhow, get back
So
to the Ed
so
Hardy thing.
so 17-year-old punk rock Justin is standing in Newberry Comics. This is like 1987, 1988, something like that. And Newberry Comics has like the alternative magazine, like the Maximum Rock and Roll, and different zines. And they have the Modern Primitives book, and they have the Tattoo Time series. And it was life changing
I've heard a lot of people say that, though,
because
about Tattoo Time.
up until this point, the only tattoos that I had seen were tattoos either on my dad's friends, which were like, FTW and like biker tats.
Yeah.
And
Cab.
yeah. And then maybe some like military tattoos.
Right.
But I mean, that was my introduction to tribal tattooing. It was my introduction to Japanese work. It was my introduction to fine line Chicano black and gray. I mean, it was mind blowing. The service, like, just if Don Hardy had not done anything else after Tattoo Time, if Don and Ernie hadn't done anything else, we'd still have an unpayable debt.
You know what's weird to me is that, I, obviously you were way more connected to this than I was back then. I was just a, kid looking to get tattooed and, admiring other people that I knew that had tattoos and stuff like that. And I always hear you talk about, Tattoo Time magazine or the book that's got the tribal on
Modern Primitives book.
Modern Primitives. To me, man, I my exposure to tattoos other than, people in real life that had them were biker magazines. Like those were really the only time I ever saw tattoos, all outside of a real person.
Right.
Because I used to do always grab, like different biker mags when I was a kid. That was the world I was living. So
Yeah.
plus it always had some naked chicks in it every once in a while. You were like, ooh, boobs.
Mm-hmm. David Manprint.
David Manprint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, David Mann stuff, phenomenal.
But I mean, to go from like my dad's friend might have had like a Harley Davidson shield with a skull, some super primitive lettering, to seeing like a full Japanese back piece. I mean, it was fucking, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Man, dude.
It was.
We're going to get a goddamn tip jar.
We're going to get a fine. Jar. All right. It was mind blowing. It was mind blowing.
Next week we're gonna have a glass swear jar.
So yeah,
You might as well get your singles ready, my man, because you're gonna be putting money in there left and right. Yeah, I mean, so to me though, you're seeing that aspect of it, and I guess I was seeing more of the Bob Roberts, uh, Don Nolan, um, maybe even a little Cliff Raven. I wouldn't say he had necessarily biker style work, but that's kind of the stuff that I was, seeing at a young age. Because who else was doing like a lot of biker? Malone.
yeah, because I mean that's where these guys were. I mean, if you were tattooing on the Sunset Strip in the 70s and 80s,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if you didn't ride a motorcycle, there were bikers around. If it wasn't just
Right.
a straight up biker shop,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at all the guys who worked at Philadelphia Eddie's. I mean,
Yeah. Back in the day.
back in the day, yeah, they were all they were all biker dudes.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, when do you feel like that changed? I think it actually started to change with Hardy.
I think it started to change with Hardy, but I think the real break uh, came in the '90s with, like, I hate to say it, but with like grunge music and with the increasing popularity of like thrash metal and punk rock and stuff like that. It just became gradually more and more acceptable. I mean, when I first started getting tattooed, it would be like dope fiends. It'd be like, "Oh yeah, man, that's real nice," and now I can be in the supermarket and a soccer mom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really pleasant looking piece of work.
Yeah.
And you got to, it's like it is like the outlaw influence, like what we talk about with Harley Davidson and Doc Martin boots. Like, they want to capitalize on the antisocial outlaw aspect of things, while at the same time completely distancing themselves
Right.
from the antisocial aspect of things. I mean, believe it or not, I got tattooed to say, to F you to the world.
Right.
And little did I know. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, the timeline goes from Hardy starting, tattoo time and really getting into the publishing thing. And then, not to breeze past anything or whatever, but I didn't realize until I started digging into this to set up for this, what we thought was going to be one episode was, Ed in the 90s was kind of almost, he retired at that point from tattooing, and he was, more into painting and moved to Hawaii to focus on painting and surfing. And there really was like, I guess he was very rarely tattooing at that point in the 90s.
I mean, I think every tattooer's dream, is to be the guy who's able to say, "No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And if you don't want to do this, I understand. More power to you, but I don't. This is what I do. This is what I want to do."
So there's another aspect to this that I found interesting. um Hardy himself talks about after he retired and he started to do a lot of painting and stuff like that, where he actually tried to break away from the tattooing aspect of his work. And he started to realize that he was kind of fighting himself when he was doing these paintings. And then he, had an epiphany or whatever, where he was just like, dude, why am I doing this to myself? This is how I made a living. There's nothing wrong with tattoo being an art form.
And not to ruffle any feathers, right? But at one point, tattooing was a calling. If you were a tattoo artist, it was your calling.
Yeah.
And now it's not. So it would make sense that the fine artist in Don Hardy would argue with the outlaw artist in Don Hardy.
So
But
RC's watching, and he actually just sent me a quick text. And he said Ed attempted to distance himself from tattooing while making money from the art and culture.
absolutely.
So let's chew on that for a minute.
So just as a for instance, right? Like this book here.
RC, I don't know if what you just texted me. Do you want me to bring that up or not? So just say yes or no.
So like this book here, right? I mean, this book has many different artists in it, but probably the first half of the book were dragons that Hardy saw in Japan and just drew.
Right. So he just answered me and said, "Yeah, sure." I asked. I must have said asked. I asked RC if he wanted to jump in on this conversation tonight. I was going to attempt to bring him in as our first kind of stop in, but he was a little leery and, whatever. That's fine. So he told me a story and he reminded me of the story and I asked if he was okay with me sharing it. So I'm going to share the story because he said, yeah. Ed had a art exhibition in Philadelphia. And this was, I think it was in the mid to late 90s. And this is still when he was trying to distance himself from the tattooing aspects of his art. Ed kind of secretly came into Philly, didn't really tell any of the tattoo people that he knew in the area that he was doing it. And RC and I think he said it was Ernie and Ernie's son Paulie, and there might have been some other people that were with them, decided to go to the exhibit. And Ed was kind of upset that those guys showed up because there was like this high class, clientele, artsy fartsy type of people there. And it was kind of like, what are you guys doing here? Why are you here? You know what I mean? Like, because he was that like adamant about trying to distance himself from the tattooing world, which, dude, you just made a shit ton of money off of it. And this isn't to bash Ed or anything, but I'm just trying to bring this up because I'm bringing you the mindset variances that happened because it did change back where he embraced tattoo culture again. At some point, he even says, admittedly, that he broke away from it and then kind of came back to it. But
It would be like there's a musician now who divorces himself from his early origins as a tattoo artist, right? Pretty innovative tattoo artist. He makes music now, but at the same time that he divorces himself from those origins, 50% of his audience at any gig are going to be tattooed people, like people into the tattoo culture, and I don't know.
what's up, Russ? Welcome to the show, brother. Russ the Hunter just stopped in.
I mean, I'm not a fine artist, so I don't.
Yeah, well, so the irony of this is that while he kind of was, annoyed that RC and Carafa and those guys showed up, all the artwork was tattoo design based, which, I mean, Justin has a stack of books here. I'll actually go ahead and show you a picture that'll kind of reference what we're talking about. If my computer will cooperate. So we're going to go ahead and share this with you guys. And this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. I mean, this is a big back piece that Ed did, I guess, for a bicentennial thing or whatever. But you know, we have stuff like this, and then we have stuff like I got another picture here that I wanted to show you guys, and I need to open it first. We have other stuff here where you can see in these pictures behind Ed that they're very, tattoo-esque.
So that was his 2000 Dragons project.
Right.
And that was when he was well into re-embracing his
tattoo
roots.
Is that where he did the really long scroll?
The Dragon Scroll. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know what documentary that was that I saw that. I was just like, wow. And he based that off of some scroll, something or another that was in Japan. He was trying to explain it, but I was more like looking at it and wasn't really paying attention to what he was saying. So, shame on me.
And I think part of it too is that, so I would say in the late 90s, the big push for Sailor Jerry starts, right? The first Sailor Jerry, not American Tattoo Master, but the first Sailor Jerry flash book is released, the full-size flash book, which is like, became the mainstay for thousands and thousands of tattooers. So suddenly Hardy's sitting on, he's sitting on a gold mine of stuff from this tattooer. I mean, stuff, he's sitting on the flash of Jerry and his acetates and his machines. And it, I did mention last week, like Owen Jensen was just as good as Sailor Jerry. They both respected each other.
It just happens to be that
the guy with the publishing company on the Sailor Jerry stuff.
Right. Pushed it. So had it been Owen Jensen instead of Sailor Jerry,
I think we'd have a lot of Owen Jensen merchandise out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, more power to him. It's not like he was pushing some kind of inferior artist and saying that it was incredible work. It is incredible work.
Right.
Jerry's work was.
Yeah, nobody's denying that.
Yeah.
It's just, how did, one person get put up on a pedestal over somebody else?
Right. Two equally talented artists.
So Fat Cracker just said he was always a snob. Just listen to the way he speaks in interviews. Lots of ego. Yet he really influenced tattooing. He did. He definitely did. I mean, there's no denying that. Jesse said, yeah, Tattoo Age documentary has the Dragon Scroll in it.
So the good part of this, and I think it's the good part of the history videos you make too, is that these were not one-dimensional characters.
Right.
Like none of them. Like whether it's Raven, whether it's Malone, whether it's Sailor Jerry, Don Hardy, Tennessee Dave, Sailor Moses. I mean, RC. I mean, they're people.
Right. They have a story.
Right.
It's not just Ed Hardy, the tattoo artist.
Right. It's Ed Hardy, who was sometimes a dick.
And had a family and had kids and, had a business and had a publishing company.
Right.
And decided to make money off of his own name by, I don't know how that deal worked out or whatever, but, wound up getting on cologne and pants and sneaks.
Yeah, and ugly. Just,
hey, you know what, man? He made a boatload of cash off of it, so I can't fault him for that.
I mean, Tuttle, right? If you look at Tuttle's life, I mean, and the contribution that he made to tattooing, and then, again, he wasn't a one-dimensional character.
Yeah, so that was what we were talking about last week. The one thing that I actually had to talk to British tattoo historian this week because of the episode that I'm working on right now. I think, after we get past a certain period of time, a lot of stuff is going to be documented, and the facts are going to be a lot easier to come by on these artists as we go further down the path. There's this weird cutoff in time where there's a lot of stories that are thrown out there, some true, some not true. And what people really don't understand is that, if you pick a certain time and go backwards, a lot of stuff was not documented because a lot of people didn't think tattooing was going to turn into what it turned into.
I got a friend of mine, Mike. He's a historian, right? He's really invested in history, and his whole thing is that if you're reading about World War One, but you're reading a book from 1960, the guy from 1960 is referencing a book that was written in 1920, right? He's not referencing his own personal experience in World War One.
Right.
And a guy in 1980 is going to reference his fact, the stuff he read about from the, you know what I mean? Like as with the way that the historical record works, if you're not going to go back and read the accounts of the people on the ground that were there, and this is what I saw, this is what I did, you're probably going to get a story built upon a story built upon a story built upon a story.
Right. I think that is the hardest part for me right now with doing the history episodes. Just going through mountains of documentation, articles, books, and trying to piece some of it together because, I almost got caught in a trick bag with this episode I'm working on right now. And had I not double checked my information, and also you had brought something up where you called it out, and I had to go back and double check it. I would have actually put out some bad information, and that's something I just never want to do, man. Especially when it comes to the history stuff, I am adamant about. I am not a historian. I will never sit here and act like I'm the go-to guy for tattoo history. If I don't know, I am just going to say, hey, I don't know, or this is my interpretation of it. And then this way you could pick it apart however you want to pick it apart. And honestly, I mean, I had started off that way from the get-go. But what really enforced it was I switched some wording around on my Charlie Wagner video, and some dude decided to be like, Henry Ford didn't invent the car. What are you, a fucking moron? And blah, blah, or something to that effect. And I was like, bro, it's not what I meant, man. Like,
so it is like what Shane said, right? What Shane Enholm said. So if you're a tattooer hanging out in Bobby Shaw's shop and you never bet Burt Grimm, right? Because you're a kid. This is when Bob Shaw would have been older. Like, you're going to take as fact Bob Shaw's recollections of Burt Grimm. And then the kids that are listening to your stories about Bobby Shaw and what he said about Burt Grimm, like, yeah. And I don't think that you ever like not to be on your dick or whatever, but I mean, I don't think you ever present your stuff as like, this is the fact.
right.
You're always very like even-handed about the fact that who knows what George Burchett did, who knows what Cliff Raven did on a daily basis.
Right.
I don't even know what the guy that lives upstairs does for me on a daily basis.
Yeah. So, William Dean, welcome to the show. Somebody new coming in, stopping in and saying what's up. He said, starting an apprenticeship next year, tracing Jerry Flash every day.
Nice.
William Dean, I want to give you a word of advice from a tattoo legend from Philadelphia. He said, tell William Dean, who is tracing Jerry Flash, he should fill a page every day with handwritten names. There you go, dude. That is coming from a guy that's been tattooing for 40 years.
So there's a story that Civ tells, right? So Civ, I mean, the guy that just put on the New York convention,
Right.
he meets up with Malone, and he's like, Mike, will you look at my work? And Malone's like, nah, you don't want me to look at your work. You just think you want me to look at your work, but you don't want me to critique your work. And Civ's like, no, come on, man, please. So Civ shows him the work, and Mike's looking through it, and he goes, wow, this is decent. This is all right, except you can't letter for shit. So, in the way, I mean, I only had a couple interactions with Mike Malone, but the way Civ describes it is that he said it in such a way that Civ went home, and now he can let her because he just,
There you go. I mean, William, if you're listening, that's RC from Philly. He's been around a long time tattooing, and it's something you definitely want to, take his word of advice if you are still listening. So, is there anything we didn't cover on the Ed Hardy thing that you feel like we should have brought up that we kind of left out? I mean, I my notes basically stop with us going to the, artwork and creating his own style and taking the time to paint and
I mean, just to give like just to give people an idea, right? So there's the Tattoo Times. We get that into the Dragon Tattoo book. This is a show that Don did, I think, in Chicago. Pierce Tarts and True Love. The Sailor Jerry book. This one doesn't really matter. I Tattooed America. That's another art exhibit he did. That's the Mike Malone book. This is a book that he published for Horiyoshi 3. And this, of course, is the first Sailor Jerry Flash book. I mean, you can't, and there are stories, in all fairness, about Don's treatment of Jerry's family, which do not put him in a very good light.
right.
As was pointed out by someone who knows more than us about things.
Right.
But you can't deny that. You can't deny the what do you call it? The influence of this set of books on modern tattooing.
Right.
I mean, there's no.
He definitely took tattooing to a whole new level.
Whether he was a shitty person or not, or a good person, or
it's not for us to make judgment, man. I mean, we don't know him personally, so we're not really in a position to do that. But there is no denying
that's a huge contribution.
Huge contribution,
and that's not even counting the Rock of Ages book or the Flash from the Past book. I mean, these were people's first, what do you call it? First exposure,
right,
to a certain kind of tattooing.
I think that it's going to be a sad day that they close up that shop. I'm hoping that somebody goes in there and takes it over, and whether they keep the name Tattoo City or not, or I would hope that somebody at least puts a shop in there and keeps the building a tattoo shop, because to me, that's one of those places that's set in stone in history for us. And as far as Ed and his family, we wish them well, and we
absolutely
hope for the best. And I know Doug has made a couple posts over the past week or so, and I don't know Doug either, but I can feel for you, man. I mean, I had watched my dad die, so in a slow 5 years, it was not the best of times. So I guess the good thing about it is that his father taught him a trade that he's gonna carry on. And
all I got from my dad was a pug nose and a crippling drug addiction.
Well, 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
But seriously, if anybody if anybody is honest, genuinely interested in Don Hardy, this is the book. If you want to know, this is Tattooing the Invisible Man. This is Hardy's account of himself, of his artwork, and of his tattooing. So, if you want to get a first edition, I'm just saying that this bad boy might show up on eBay.
We hope that we did justice for the Ed Hardy story, Tattoo City story. We did try to cram everything into one episode. We turned it into two. We know that this episode wasn't 100% about Tattoo City and Ed Hardy. So anybody that's watching this, if you've made it to the end, maybe you get a little bit of understanding of what we're about and how we kind of hash things out here at Tattoos and Review and Two Fat Guys in a Tattoo Shop. We put our own spin on it and give our interpretation of things. And is it always right? That's for you guys to decide. I think everybody has their own opinions on different things, and Sarah made a good point about you don't have to like the artist, but you can still appreciate the work.
So it's
I don't think anybody said we didn't like him. It was, by the way, it was just I wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, so a funny story with that is with Shanghai Kate, right? So Shanghai Kate had some kind of split with Malone.
Yep.
And it was like a thing, thing that happened well before I came into tattooing, but it was always known that between Mike and Kate,
people that stuck out to the end, you're getting a nugget that we were going to leave out. So go ahead, keep going.
There was, some bad blood, right? So Kate had some of Jerry's stencils, and this was before they were readily available. And I was talking to her about the stencils, and I was like, I'd really like to get a couple Sparrow stencils. And she was like, yeah, I usually sell those for about $70, $75 a piece, right? Because we were getting along. And then I mentioned that I was friends with Furry Couch, who was very good friends with Mike Malone. And suddenly Kate said, oh, you mean the $300 a piece Sailor Jerry stencils?
Yeah.
And it just, that one interaction gave me a bad taste in my mouth when it came to Kate. You know what I mean? And then to find out that later on she sort of took up for Jerry's family.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea, man. I had no idea any of that.
Yeah. So there's speculation, stories. I don't want to call them rumors, but Jerry's family was living on the poverty line.
Right.
While
there was rum.
Ed Hardy and these guys were making money off of Sailor Jerry's name and stuff like that. So whether it's true or not, I don't know. I've heard stories from two different sides of it. And, really the only people that are going to know are Ed and Jerry and Mike and Kate and whoever else was in that mix. I think that's another part that a lot of people don't understand is that there was this weird transactional thing that happened after Jerry died with that whole
who was going to get the shop.
Yeah, who's going to get what and stuff like that. But I think that when Justin references the hey, had somebody else had a publishing company, it could have been easily just as been Owen Jensen instead of Sailor Jerry that everybody talks about. I mean, there's a lot of different people out there that I think if you were to ask tattoo enthusiasts or tattoo artists, there's a lot of names that would come up that a lot of people, the regular person, wouldn't even know about.
Absolutely.
And I'm on this mission to bring those people to light. Unfortunately, some of those people are not going to bring in the views that like a Bob Roberts or Ed Hardy or, you know what I mean, Lyle Tuttle would bring in, because nobody really knows about them. But for me, it's more about the, hey man, let's shine the light on these other phenomenal tattoo artists that gave a lot to this,
Right.
that deserve to be, you know, a little bit of spotlight put on them.
You know, we were talking earlier, my friend Kate and I, about a photograph that I had given her, and it was of a woman from the 1920s who was a flapper who was heavily tattooed.
Okay.
Right. And in this photo, she's laying back in her flapper dress with her tattoos out, but she also has an opium pipe and a monkey standing on the back of the couch.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah. And the thing is like, you look at a photograph like that, or you look at, say, the tattooers from back then, and think, what would it must have been like to break social convention like that? To be a fully tattooed, you know, if she was a flapper, she was an independent, you know, probably sex positive, you know, person in her life. Like, what must it have, what was a person like that like, that just did not give, you know, just
Yep.
was like, I'm doing what I'm doing, man.
You know, it's one of those things where
And they, you know, they deserve, their lives need to be deserve to be explored,
yeah,
even if they are more obscure within
right,
the industry.
right. No, I agree with that 100%. But you know, here's another piece that I really didn't think about until just recently. Like, you know, man, I started this channel because I was like, man, so many people got tattoos. This, you know, man, this will be a good seller, dude. I love tattoos. I love the history of tattoos. Millions of people got tattoos. This is a home run, man. I can't miss on this. And then I thought about it just recently, where I went, yeah, well, a lot of people have tattoos, but how many people really give a shit about the people that created this thing? How many people actually give a shit about actual tattoo artists? Not a lot. That's like a car enthusiast that's like, you know, diehard Ford guy, and I love Mustangs, and I can tell you every model of the Mustang, which I'm not, but, or I'm a Harley guy, and I can tell you every model from 1911 forward, and da 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 da. And there's millions of people that love Harleys and millions of people that ride, but there's, you know, 900,950 people that couldn't really give a shit about any of that.
I mean, and even people that do care, even people that are tattooed, between you and I, we could probably name 100 tattooers that are top of their game tattooers, that are world famous within the tattoo community, that a lot of tattoo people have never heard about.
Right.
You know, like,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of stuff we talk about on a regular basis, folks. So if you like what you heard here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure you join us next week. We'll be back 6 o'clock Eastern time. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great night. Have a good week. Stay safe.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good catchphrase for breaking this thing off.
2 fat guys out.
Stay safe, everyone. Have a good week.